No. They're gonna video the Keep your sandwich, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, they're funny. We don't I do want to sit by you.
Lucy, Jackie, look. So come here. Lucy, we need that seat.
No, it's just we have 3.
Lucy, look here. Jackie, look. Got it.
Yeah.
They can move all that.
I know. Right here.
Oh, right there. Tell me right there. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's us.
And they're going, well, there's Emily. Yeah, I literally just like pulled my hair out of her.
In the back. I'm excited. You've been saying all your names all morning. Soon. Look at it.
Hello everyone, good day. Welcome to the Cockroach.
It's hot. It's not a bad box. It's hot.
Hello.
See a power button. Okay. Try them.
Hello.
It wasn't powered, but
Hello.
There it is.
Welcome. I guess there's always problems with technology or some kind of thing. But anyway, welcome to the Cockcane Farmstead. This is, I think, our 6th Hungry for History event, and this one is our second that's just for kids. So we are welcoming today Anna from Oglebay Zoo to you. Oh, by the way, there is water back on the table if anybody gets really thirsty.
All right. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? You can be louder than that. Come on, be louder than the traffic. How are you doing? Okay. So my name is Anna. I'm from the Oglebay Good Zoo. Raise your hand if you've been to the zoo before. Awesome. What are some cool animals you saw? Just shout them out. Nice. I don't have any of those here today. They're a little too big for me to transport, but I do have some really cool animals that we're going to meet today. They're super excited. We're going to go over a couple of quick rules and then we're going to meet the animals. The first rule is that we have to be quiet. The traffic is going to make that a little bit interesting with some of the animals, but that's okay. So just make sure if you don't like an animal, you don't scream, especially if you're up close to it. If you don't want to see an animal, just tell me no thank you. When we touch some of the animals, we're going to use 2 fingers, okay? Can everybody show me these 2 fingers? Nice. These are our animal touching fingers. We're only going to touch the animals on their backs with these 2 fingers. We're not going to touch anywhere near their face. We're also not going to touch near our face. That way we don't get any of their germs on us because they don't shower every day. So they are a little dirty, but that's okay. They're meant to be. We are also going to use hand sanitizer before we start touching the animals and after as well. And when you guys are ready to touch the animals, I'll have you come up and we'll form a line up here and we'll touch one at a time, okay? And if you have any questions, raise your hand. Yeah. We might have a snake. All right. We ready? Awesome. All right. Just give me a minute to get the first animal out, okay? All right. So this is Max. He is our Virginia possum. He's about 3 years old. He looks just like that one, yes. So he is one of my favorite animals to talk about because he is so sweet and there's so many awesome facts about possums. One amazing thing about them is that they are great climbers, so I'm sure Max is going to be climbing all over me as soon as he wakes up. They are nocturnal animals, so he sleeps during the day and is awake at night. So I just kind of woke him up from his nap, but he'll start moving around here in a minute. Possums are what we call marsupials, meaning that they are mammals, they do give birth to live young, and they feed milk, but unlike us, they have a pouch that they keep their young in. So Max was actually found in his mother's pouch. Unfortunately, his mom was hit by a car and she did not make it. But the babies in her pouch were still alive when the person found them, and they took the babies to the zoo and we raised Max and his brothers and sisters. And of course, we kept the best one for ourselves. Max has been an awesome education animal, teaching everyone about how cool possums are and why we want to have them around. Do you guys know what playing possum is? Do you? Raise your hand if you know. Yeah, they act like they're dead. So it's not a conscious choice that they make. It's actually their nervous system gets so overloaded that they just pass out. When they pass out, they happen to slow their breathing and they emit a stinky odor. So they look like they're dead and they smell like they're dead. Most animals don't want to eat something already dead. They would much rather go for a fresh kill. So they leave possums alone. Unfortunately, that does mean that sometimes possums get hit by cars. So we do see them on the side of the road occasionally. Now, Max's favorite food at the zoo is probably grapes, but in the wild, they love to eat ticks. So ticks are definitely not something we want to have all over the place, and possums help control the tick population. One possum can eat about 5,000 ticks in a season, so that is fantastic. That definitely stops the spread of diseases. This is the climbing I was talking about. So Max is not able to hang by his tail. He just uses his tail as a fifth limb. So you saw how he hung onto my finger as he climbed down. He's a little bit slower in his old age. So he's not quite as young and spry as he once was when he goes down. He looks a little bit awkward, but he still can climb better than I can, definitely. Do we have any questions about Max? All right, so we're gonna come up here and form a line, okay? If you want to touch him.
Lucy, Jackie.
Lucy,
Jackie, come here. Lucy.
Lucy.
Lucy. Go ahead. Go ahead, go up there. Hi, Lucy.
Get in line.
Marshall, you wanna? Rose, go get in line with Marshall and Kennedy.
He has a Superman one and a Batman one and the good one.
So plain black and sheets. Whenever I went in to get
He can say hello. The guy's not
She had
I mean, she has it.
I know.
Come on, Jack. Let's go touch it. Come on. Come on. Jackson.
Being good at the meeting with Casey. Just talk about some stuff at school.
He's like, since the smaller group today, you just please turn on your cameras and your microphones. I'm just I know, I never have my camera on.
You gonna touch this? Probably.
Yeah. Marshall, put your hand out. That's fine.
Kennedy, show him how to pet it.
He's like, I just want
Did you see the possum? That's okay. You got to see it. Cool. Kennedy. Usually, whenever I put it on, he wants it on too. Probably because it's a stranger. It's super backward. How'd it feel, girls?
He wants a handsome.
Is that fun?
Yes, I'm going to put Max back if there's not any questions about him. Are there any questions? Yeah. So the average lifespan in the wild is going to be about 2 years, really just long enough for them to grow up and make babies of their own. In captivity, it's about 3 to 5 years. They're really not made to live very long because in the wild they don't live long. So once they get to be about 4 or 5, they start to develop some really bad health complications. But that's okay. Max is going to live forever. Any other questions? Okay.
You don't want to touch alligator?
So this is Stevie. She is our North American alligator. She is about 4 years old. She's a little small for her age. Typically, alligators down south in the wild are going to grow about a foot a year for the first 6 years of life. But since she's up here and it's a little bit cooler, we have this thing called winter. She isn't growing at that same rate. She's cold-blooded, meaning that she takes on the temperature of her environment. So if it's 70 degrees, her body's going to be 70 degrees. If it's 90 degrees, she's going to be 90 degrees. But that means that down south, where it's warm a lot longer throughout the year, she's able to grow faster since it's warmer all the time. If she tried to live up here in the wild, she wouldn't be able to make it through the winter because unfortunately for reptiles, unless they go into their version of hibernation, they're not going to survive the cold temperatures because their body will start shutting down. So we have to take extra good care of her in the winter time and make sure she stays in a nice warm room with lots of water and a heat lamp for her to sunbathe under. Now, Stevie, you're not going to find her up here like we talked about. She lives down south in the southeastern part of the United States, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana. She is the top predator of the marshes there, and she's going to eat just about anything. They're what we call ambush predators, meaning that she will sit with her mouth open and wait for food to come close to her before she's going to try and get something to eat. She's not going to chase after her food. She's not going to hunt. She will lie and wait for the food to come to her. Her coloration lets her look almost like a log when she's in the water. So if she sits really still, which she's really good at sitting still, sometimes birds land on her thinking she's just an innocent tree branch and she gets a little snack. Now, Stevie eats a mouse about 3 times a week if she wants to. She doesn't have to eat every day like we do because reptiles are cool like that. They don't need to eat very often. Since Stevie is still growing, she eats a little more often than some of our other reptiles do. But even though we offer the mouse, some days she doesn't take it. Some days she's just not hungry. She'll get that opportunity again later in the week. Any questions about Stevie? Yeah. That's a really good question. So gators can live about 50 years. So they are definitely one of the longer lived species of reptiles. Any other questions? Yeah. So we only feed frozen thawed. That's for the safety of our animals because a live prey item will try to defend itself and that could potentially injure our animals. However, sometimes we have to make the food room temperature or maybe a little bit warmer, hold it in our hands to make it seem like it's alive. And for some of our snakes, we do have to kind of shake it in front of their face so they see that movement and think it is alive. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you guys ready to touch her? All right. So again, we're going to form a line.
Marshall, do you want to touch an alligator?
We're going at 12. And I'm like, let the dogs out.
That's hilarious. You have to talk a lot on it?
Yeah, some. And then
See, I like when I can just move the whole time and just listen.
Yeah. It was supposed to be over at 11:30, so I was like, yeah, maybe here it was running over. And I was like, oh my god.
I thought you might still be on it when I saw you sat there.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was like, all right, well, we're almost 20 minutes, so go ahead. Yeah.
And like, they haven't set a timeline to go back to work.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
I don't mind it, but like right now, like I don't have to do anything with kids.
Right.
But like
Yeah.
when I have to be teaching them stuff,
Yeah.
no.
No. Oh, the field, the pool? Yeah? Cut this map.
It's kind of slim.
Good job, Marshall, did you touch the alligator? Did you grab its head?
What is
Leave it to Marshall. You can. You can.
So Stevie is definitely one of the stronger animals that I have here today. She is fighting me not because she is scared, but she just wants to get away. She potentially thinks that I'm a predator trying to eat her and she doesn't want to be eaten, or she just doesn't want to be held. Gators are calm when you handle them every day from babies to about this size, but once they get to be this size, they realize, huh, I'm big, I'm strong, I don't have to do what you're making me do. So sometimes she's just trying to get away from me. That's why you might have seen her squirm. The scales you were touching are called osteoderms. So they're special scales that act like solar panels. So when she's in the sun, it helps warm her up before she goes and just lays in the sun all day until some food comes by. Are there any final questions about Stevie? All right. So this is Choctaw. He is a barred owl. You might have seen him down at our barn in our new raptor room. We rotate which birds are on exhibit there, and he's one of the birds that can come out. He is actually a wild bird. So he was brought to a raptor rehab program because he was hit by a car. So he has a wing injury and an eye injury. Now we could still release him if he was able to fly and if he was able to hunt, because owls hunt mostly with their hearing and their eyesight just supplements their hearing. But he didn't want to kill for us. So because of that, we couldn't release him because we want to make sure whatever birds we release are able to survive on their own. So he's here with us today because he has a great personality for education. He is very, very calm for an owl. He was definitely not this calm when we first brought him in. He's learned over the years that being this close is totally fine. We're not going to do anything to him. But still, sometimes he gets a little bit scared if he hears a loud noise or there's some sudden movement. He might try to fly away. That's why I have this glove on my hand to protect myself from his talons, but also to clip him to myself. This clip acts kind of like a leash on your dog when you take him on a walk and you clip the leash to his collar. Even if your dog tries to run away, as long as you have a good hold on the leash, your dog's only going to go as far as that leash allows. Same thing with Choctaw and his clip. Now, Choctaw is nocturnal, so he would normally be sleeping during the day, but since his hearing is so well, I've never actually caught him sleeping because by the time I come up, he's usually heard me and has opened his eyes. But his eyes are definitely much better in the nighttime than they are in the day. That's why he's squinting a little bit right now. Barred owls are named for the bars on their chest here. He's hunched down a little bit so you can't see them, but there's a mix of black bars and then white in between, and that's how they get their name. You probably won't see a barred owl, but you might hear them. Their call sounds like "Who Cooks for You?" And if you look it up on the internet, because I'm not going to imitate it, you can hear a really good example of them calling. Now, their favorite food in the world is mice, which really helps because mice love to make babies and they overpopulate an area very quickly. So Choctaw here will hunt mice, and he's a really good hunter, and he will help keep those populations under control so the mice aren't in our house causing destruction or spreading diseases too. Do you guys have any questions about Choctaw? Yeah.
You guys are lap load.
So Choctaw is able to hold his head stationary while we move his body. If you notice, he kind of keeps his head in the same spot right now until he starts looking around. He hears my voice. Usually he's looking at me when I have him out. I think with the speakers he's a little confused where the noise is coming from, plus the traffic. But he's doing a really great job. We've worked a lot with him to get him comfortable being around people and also around new situations. And this is awesome how well he's doing today. Any other questions about Choctaw? All right. So we are not going to touch Choctaw, but I'm going to walk him around so you all can get a better look at him, okay? So if we just stay seated, I'll bring him around for you to get a good look, okay? Any questions about Choctaw before I put him back? Yeah. How old is he? How long do they live? I think it's in their 20s in human care. We don't actually know how old Choctaw is because he is wild. So when he came in, he already had his adult feathers. So unfortunately, once a bird gets their adult feathers, you only know they're an adult and then however long you've had them after that. Do you have a question in the back? Good question. Since about 2013 he came in, so 7 years. Any other questions? Yeah. What do you say? Not so much for barred owls. They pretty much look the same. There might be some minute size differences, but barred owls is pretty much going to be this coloration for them.
Marshall. Stop.
All right.
It doesn't matter. You have to stay right by that. Okay. You want a pouch? Pouch? Does he want a drink? Like this? Share my water. Yeah. I know it's coming next.
I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna touch it. Ew. It's going.
So this is Nigel. He's our carpet python. So he's the snake that you guys all have been asking about. Nigel is not from the United States, so all the parents out there can calm down. I did not bring a venomous snake with me today. Nigel is from northern Australia, and he does have a diamond-shaped head. In the United States, diamond-shaped heads typically indicate a venomous snake, but that is only true in the United States. Other parts of the world have different ways to indicate they're venomous snakes, which is why, unless you are 110% sure you know what type of snake is in front of you, you shouldn't pick it up. You shouldn't pick up snakes anyways. You should just let them be. But if there's a reason you need to pick up a snake, make sure you know what it is before you try to touch it. Nigel here has been with us since about 2002. So he is super comfortable being held, meeting people, trying to crawl off of my hand. He really loves to be out of his exhibit. He loves to explore. So if there was a tree behind me, he would definitely be trying to climb it in. When he sticks his tongue out, that's his way of smelling the air. He has a special organ in his mouth called the Jacobson organ that once he picks up those smells on his forked tongue, he can bring it into his mouth and put his tongue on that organ, and it'll let him know from what direction that smell is coming from. Almost like how our ears work. And that's why his tongue has to be forked, so he's able to tell direction. Nigel also loves to eat mice. That's his favorite meal at the zoo. He only eats every 3 weeks, though. He doesn't eat very often because he's full grown. He's not like Stevie. He's not growing anymore. He's about 5 feet long, although you can't tell that when he's all curled up around me. And he would actually, his female counterpart is bigger than he is. So females of the carpet python are larger than the males. Are there any questions about Nigel? Yeah. So they can live a very long time. It depends on the type of care you give them. If you are able to give them a nice big place, make sure they get lots of exercise, they can definitely live for 30 to 40 years. But sometimes snakes don't live that long. They go through what's called bad sheds, where they shed their skin and it doesn't shed off all the way. And you have to make sure you get all that old skin off because that can cause a lot of health problems. So Nigel is he's considered a bad shedder. So we have to help him during that shedding process so that way we don't get any stuck shed and cause some health problems down the road. Any other questions? Yeah. So Nigel is wrapping around me because he thinks I'm a treat. And because he is a larger snake than some of the snakes we have here, who would normally just wrap around your wrist, he finds my waist the most comfortable place to be wrapped around. Nigel is also considered a constrictor. So when he is feeding, he will bite onto his food and wrap around them. As they breathe out, he will slowly tighten up until he suffocates them. So that is why I don't have him around my neck, because even though I am way too big for him to eat, and he knows that, if he gets scared, he might tighten up, and that would be very hard to get him off of my neck. If he tightens up on my waist, I can step out of him, which I have done before. Any other questions about Nigel? Yeah. How long can it constrict? As long as he needs to feel like his prey is fully dead. He's not constricting right now, he's just holding on. So he can hold on like this for a pretty long time. He is using his specialized tummy scale, which goes straight across his body, and they act like little hands to hold on to me. He also has his body wrapped over my phone on my right side, so he's able to kind of rest. Like we're sitting on a chair, he's kind of resting on my phone there. Any other questions? All right. So again, we can touch Nigel. We're going to come up and form a line up here, okay?
Come on, Jackie. Let's go touch him. I'm going to go touch him with Jackson.
Happy.
Lucy, come on. Jackie.
I'm not scared. I'm just
Kind of too big for him to eat. Can't live without you. Is that his name?
I didn't touch it. It was scaly.
Yeah, don't.
The dry feeling.
It just felt
Here, adjust it. Adjust it.
All right. Are there any final questions about Nigel? Mhm. All right. So we have one more animal to see, okay? It's a little bit smaller than Nigel is. So this is the Madagascar hissing cockroach. He is a lot smaller than all of the animals you've seen today, so I'll definitely let you come up later and get a closer look at him. He is not from here, so he doesn't look like our cockroaches. I think he looks a lot cuter than they do. But he is not able to fly, so don't worry about him flying away. He is what we call somebody that would hold on to us. He has sticky feet that allow him to hang upside down. That's important because he lives in the rainforest of Madagascar where it's very, very humid. So if he didn't have sticky feet, he wouldn't be able to hang onto the leaves there. He eats dead, decomposing things. So he is almost like nature's cleanup crew. He's going to be the one to clean up all the gross stuff so that way it doesn't pile up. And he's also going to help cycle nutrients back into the soil too, which is great. Rainforests typically have nutrient-poor soil. So without these guys, it would be even worse. Now, he is hissing. You might not be able to hear it, but he makes that hissing sound with holes in his abdomen. He will actually push air out of it. So he doesn't make that sound with his mouth. And it's not an aggressive sound. It's meant to scare whatever predator is trying to eat him. The idea is that snakes hiss. So if he hisses, a bird that's trying to eat him might think it's a snake and back off just long enough for him to let go and fall off of the leaf he's on. They are not poisonous. They are not venomous. They don't have a big mouth to bite anything. Their only defense system is hissing. And then they do have a strong exoskeleton around them, like body armor, so that they can survive a fall from a pretty good height and still be okay. Any questions about the cockroach? Yeah. That's a really good question. They don't live very long. We have a breeding colony at the zoo, so I don't even know how old this guy is. I just know that he's an adult. But they really don't live long, just long enough to make babies and move on, which is on the order of days and not years. Yeah. Did you hear it? Yeah. You heard it? Okay, cool. Yeah. Sometimes they're more hissy than other times. Depends on which one we grab from the tank and how threatened they feel by us touching them. If we have them out long enough, they do chill out eventually. So I've had a program where I've had 3 or 4 rounds, and by the 3rd round, he doesn't hiss anymore because he's just super chill. But you guys are more than welcome to come up and get a closer look at him and touch him. When we touch him, we're only going to use one finger since he's so small, okay?
Let's go touch that pup.
Come on. Come on, babe, over here.
I'll convince you.
Yeah, it was like, yes. You touching?
What?
Kennedy.
It hit that me.
It hits that.
It didn't hit that me.
Oh, did you touch it, Marshall?
Yeah.
I touched it too. No,
Hey, buddy, you want to wash your hands one more time?
Tommy, go touch him. As soon as you touch him,
Lucy.
It didn't hit that me, Dad, but I touched it.
Rub them together. Thank you.
So they told him.
All right.
Yeah.
I touched all of them except this one.
All right. Are there any final questions about the cockroach?
Thank you.
I'm not sure if they do. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, just because they're part of that same family. But I'm not sure what diseases they would be carriers of. Yeah. So they don't live very long. We're talking about days, maybe months, but not many years. Hard shell doesn't do much damage. Yeah. What's your question?
Why is it called a hissing cockroach?
Because he hisses.
Yeah, but why is it supposed to hiss?
To scare off predators. Yeah. What's your question?
Why does it have slimy feet?
What'd you say?
Why does it have slimy feet?
So he has sticky feet, and that's so he can hang on. All right. Well, that's all the animals I have for you. I'll pass around hand sanitizer here at the end, but thank you guys so much for coming out. I had a great time with you.
Wasn't that cool? So thank you, Anna. Thank you, the Good Zoo, for bringing that here today. So that's the last of our kids-specific presentations for this year. But we do have a couple more Hungry for Histories. We have Mr. C.J. Plogger coming next Thursday at the same time. He's going to talk about the penitentiary. And then I think we have Mr. Sean Duffy going to talk about the Benwood mine disaster. So we tried this out, doing some ones for kids this year, and we really loved having it. So we're going to try and do some more for next year. So keep a watch out for those next summer. I also have one more animal to show you, since this is about animals. This is Bennett the black sheep, and he is our mascot. So another new thing we've done this year is we're open every day, Monday through Friday, 10 to 4 for tours. You can just stop in and take a tour anytime. And we now have a scavenger hunt for kids to do as you're going through the house. So there's some fun questions, and you try and find the answers as you're going through. And the end of the scavenger hunt is every day, Bennett hides somewhere in the house, and you have to find him. So that's something we're trying new for this year. So make sure you stop by for a tour and see if you can spot Bennett somewhere in the house. So thank you guys all for coming. Thank you to everyone who's watching on Facebook or YouTube, and we hope to see you at more events throughout the year.